Lawyers for the US president claim Donald Trump had little choice but to ask Ukraine to investigate his potential political rival, Joe Biden, and his son. Democrats argue the president acted inappropriately, accusing him of pressuring Ukraine to investigate alleged corruption. President Trump's all-star defence team is making its case against his removal from office in the Senate impeachment trial.
They are here saying that the president must be impeached and removed from office for raising a concern. And that's why we have to talk about this today. They say sham, they say baseless, because they say this because if it's okay for someone to say, hey, you know what, maybe there's something here worth raising, then their case crumbles.
Trump's defence team is attempting to block his former national security advisor, John Bolton, from testifying in the trial. Let's go live now to Simon Jackman. He's the CEO at the US Studies Centre. Simon, thanks so much. Is this John Bolton intervention, this apparently book manuscript, is this a game changer? Because it seems to endorse some of the Democratic argument, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly put the cats among the pigeons. In Washington today, defenders of the president furiously trying to hose this one down and keep the narrative not back on the substance of the claim, but to assert that the president had the right to do what he did. So watching the argument change almost in real time as they're starting to look ahead to the very real prospect that Bolton may well be testifying in this matter before we're all said and done.
And what that means as well is that the trial's extended beyond what we thought it would be. There was an expectation it could have been wrapped up by the end of this week. That's looking less likely, and potentially now stretching beyond the State of the Union next week.
Yeah, and stretching through into voting in the Iowa caucuses on Monday. Now, that's the other thing that this is set against, Kieran, is that you've got Biden now, they've gone on offence, right? The last 24 hours have been largely, the president's defence has been putting it right back on Biden. And the timing of this is enormously fraught because we've got those Iowa caucuses on Monday. Sanders is doing well in some polling there. All along, I've suspected that this strategy is all about hurting Biden, that Trump would much rather run against Warren or Sanders, anyone but Biden. And let's not take our eye off that narrative here, that arc as well in all of this. And so the timing of this butted up against not just State of the Union, as you pointed out, but the Iowa caucuses. It's fascinating politics and how is this done on Friday, or is this actually they're still taking evidence the day of the Iowa caucuses? That'd be a first in American political history.
Incredible, isn't it? Particularly when some of the candidates in the primaries that we're talking about are in the Senate, like Sanders, like Warren, and so on. That's
right. And they have to stay there. And Biden and Buttigieg are out there in the field in Iowa running around talking to voters, and literally you've got the other senators trying to get back out in the field, but then have to get on a plane and come back to Washington to fulfill their constitutional obligations to deal with this impeachment trial.
How do you see the Iowa caucuses, New Hampshire after that, in terms of, well, give our viewers a sense of just how important this is for the Democratic race for momentum? What's the recent history suggest in terms of just how pivotal these are?
It's really important, that first test in a crowded field. Are the polls right? Do we really have two tiers here, number one? That is, there are some front runners, Biden, Sanders, Buttigieg, Warren. Have we got that top four? Or is Klobuchar stronger than we thought, for instance? So we get some signalling about that, number one. But number two, do you beat your polls? And it's the expectations game is what this is about. Are you stronger than the polls are saying? And does that shape, what is it that voters know, or that the campaign is stronger than the polls are reflecting? Those sorts of signals are frightfully important too, as donors are looking at which horse to back. And so setting the sequence here is so important. people take into account the sort of states we're in. Iowa is not New Hampshire. New Hampshire is closer to Sanders' home turf. All of that, and Warren's home turf, all of that calculation is in there. But beating your polls or managing your expectations and then outperforming those expectations is so much of the chess game here, particularly in a crowded field. And Kieran, I'm going to be in Iowa on the weekend. I'm flying out. I'll be on the ground on Monday for the caucuses. I did that 4 years ago. I can't wait to get there. You see this up close and in real time. Fascinating politics set against what's happening in Washington.
Yeah, indeed, and our reporter Annalise Nielsen is there, so I'll make sure you speak to her when you get to Iowa for the caucuses. But finally, just give us a sense as well how you see this playing out vis-a-vis Trump, because it seems to me, and you and I have discussed this before, you've got that few percent in the middle that basically decide elections, the undecideds, the independents. How does the impeachment drama, how does that all play into where those undecideds fall?
And again, Kieran, this is what the narrative's about. Impeachment is not about persuading Democrats, right? You had them at hello. You had them long before Trump was elected, right? Every Democrat is on board, and I suspect every Democrat will vote for whoever the nominee of their party is, such as their distaste for Donald Trump. This impeachment is a play for disaffected Republicans and a play for the independents that trying to make the case as strongly as they can on the Democratic side that Trump is not fit for office and certainly not fit for a second term. That's what this is fundamentally about, and secondarily putting enormous pressure on about 3 or 4 moderate Republican senators, Mitt Romney, Cory Gardner, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, and other Republican senators that may be up for re-election in November as well. But the name of the game here is not trying to remove the president from office. That's not going to happen. The name of the game here is a play for undecideds and a play for disaffected Republicans with a view to the general.
Well, safe travels to Iowa. We'll talk to you next week. Appreciate it.